So welcome to the lecture on international students for CEPD 6178. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about international students and the challenges they face while they're attending a college in the United States. And we're also going to discuss the environment from their perspective. And then we're going to apply Tinto's model to an international student's experience at a college or university in the United States. So one of the things that we need to talk about first are some of the inputs as we think about Aston's IEO model. What are the significant differences between international students and native students when it comes to the college experience? Well, first and foremost, it's the culture. If you've ever visited another country, you know that the social norms are different, the values are different, beliefs are different, religion is different, can be different. The way they value religion or the way they have beliefs on family or their values on family, and sometimes native students can't understand why an international student may be so homesick because they haven't seen their family in years, and it just might be because there's different beliefs or values that they are holding. And a lot of times we take our social norms and our American culture for granted because we don't think about it in terms of what are the rules that we play by every single day. And when we're in another country, we're playing by their rules. These are called social norms. So when international students are coming to American campuses, they need to not only navigate American culture and social norms, but also campus culture and campus norms. So those are some very, very challenging inputs that they are bringing with them that's going to affect their environment as well as their outputs. Another big one is language. Some international students may have English as a second language or may not be very fluent in English. And a lot of times American students or faculty members may not be patient with this. So their knowledge of English is going to serve as a major factor in their interpretation of the environment as well as the outcome. The next piece is family background and the role of family. Family may have a much stronger influence on an international student's education. They may be paying for the education, or the international student may be paying for the education. They may be going to college specifically to benefit their family, whereas an American college student may be going to college to escape their family. So there's a lot of differences in the role of family that plays into for international students compared to native students. And the other thing is skills. If we think about the skills and attributes that international students bring, particularly if this is their first time attending a school outside of their home country, they may have different skills, they may have a different knowledge base, they may have been exposed to different topics that native students or American students may not have been exposed to. So their perception of academics and teaching and lecturing may be very, very different, and the way they learn may be very, very different. And I'm going to get into that here in the next slide. So a lot of those inputs are the factors that they're bringing in when they're attending a college in the United States. But there's also a lot of challenges that can come with that for international students. One of the major challenges international students face are psychological. Being away from home, particularly for the first time, may cause homesickness. They may feel lonely and isolated because they can't find anyone with whom they can relate. That might result into depression, stress, and they may start going through some identity confusion or identity role development, trying to figure out who they are, particularly as, say, a Chinese student or a Korean student or a Colombian student or whatever it may be. This identity development will start to permeate and develop a lot more because the contrast is there compared to Native American students. So these psychological issues are a lot of things that international students may not want to confront because it may be outside of their cultural norms to acknowledge depression, anxiety, stress, isolation, loneliness, because it could be perceived as a form of weakness. It just depends on the culture. The other piece is academics. Some international students may perceive academics as a significant reason for being at a college or university, Whereas American students, it's part of the reason, and the college experience and growing up and developing is more of the primary reason for American students. So international students may not necessarily understand the quote-unquote college experience as seen by native students. So going out and partying and the social scene may be very different to international students. The same is true for language. Language can be a barrier in the classroom as well as out of the classroom. So if a student isn't very fluent in language, they may have difficulties understanding faculty, reading material, finding research, and doing a lot of different things that American students take for granted when they are in the classroom. So think about it, if you were attending a class in France and all of your material was in French and you had a basic understanding of French, you would be a little bit behind the curve because you'd have to spend more time really understanding what it was that was being said. And then when it comes to language, there's a big difference between formal English and informal English. And a lot of times, native students don't speak formal English. They speak informal English, which can create more confusion to international students, particularly in an academic setting. And the language really relates back to the text in the classroom as well, because it's all in English. Now, the social cultural or the environment is also another big factor for international students and challenges they face. I discussed the norms and the rules that we all play by in American culture. But there's two different types. There's the American social norms and campus social norms. Who hangs out with whom? Where do we go? What are the services? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? How do you talk to faculty? How do you not talk to faculty? For a lot of international students, the style of teacher or professor to student in lectures is very, very different than the American style. American students will question their faculty, will interact, there may be quizzes, there may be tests, polls, a variety of different things, where for some international students it may be a sit back and listen and you absolutely do not question the faculty member. So coming to terms with these norms and understanding what's appropriate can be a challenge, and it can result in some cultural shock. Cultural shock can be immediate from getting off the airplane into the airport to gradual after being exposed to the new culture after a while. Another thing that international students tend to experience is discrimination. Just because more often than not, if they're not of Western descent or European descent, there could be a lot of assumptions and stereotypes regarding students that may be from Asia or the Philippines or wherever. So they tend to experience discrimination that can create a lot of challenges for them in the environment. Talked about customs a lot, where there's certain customs and American customs that they need to learn to be able to successfully navigate the campus climate. And the campus climate could be very positive or it could be very negative towards international students. And a lot of that just depends on the types of support services that are there. And the next piece is general living. With international students, we tend to forget that if they're coming over on a plane, they may not have transportation, they may not have a car or a way to get from point A to point B. So being in a college or a university that has transportation available is very important, because that can create undue hardships. The same is true with residence halls. Are there support programs within the residence halls? Are they able to find people with whom they can relate or with whom they can feel safe? Those are very, very important pieces for international students, because if that's not there, it will be a significant challenge for them to be successful. And then the other piece is documentation, visas, getting approvals to work and to do different things, and making sure that all of these pieces are aligned, because if something were to happen to one of those visas, it can seriously jeopardize their academic career at a college or university. And a lot of these things American students will take for granted, not really think about the different issues or factors that international students confront on a daily basis. So what does this mean for Tinto's model? Well, for Tinto, we've talked about the role of family background for American students, But this can change significantly with international students because their family background is going to be significantly different than our family background for Native American students. And the same is true for skills and attributes. They've been exposed to a completely different education system. They've developed completely different skills and completely different attributes than American students. And then the next piece are the external forces and choices. The external forces is anything from documentation issues to social norms to customs to failure to cope with some psychological issues, a variety of different things. So for international students, the external forces is going to have a much larger role to play in terms of affecting the academic and the social systems. And then for international students, the social system is going to be a much smaller piece than the academic system because for them, they are here for academics. The academics may be valued on a much higher level than the social system, and their perception of college and university experience is based around academics and not around the social system. So for Tinto's model, the international students, it still applies, but it's very, very different. And if we remember what we said about Tinto, that the only system that's very important to truly feel connected to is the academic system. Because if you're not connected or succeeding in academics, you are going to fail. So that's a big reason why international students tend to focus a lot more on their academics. But for international students, the social system can be very important in terms of helping them develop identity, awareness, and becoming accustomed to American culture. Without that social piece and becoming assimilated into American culture, they may have more difficulties than others. So what does this mean for international students? Well, if we think about the environment, we've talked about the inputs, and we talked about the outcomes, whether it's identity development or graduation or persistence. In terms of environment, the first things that really need to happen are support. Faculty and staff need to be able to provide safe places for international students to be able to meet other international students or have out-of-class experiences that help engage them in the American culture, learn informal English, interact with native students, and all of these things can help create a successful experience for international students. And another piece of this is extracurricular activities, particularly student organizations and international student unions. These two pieces can be critical for international students' assimilation to colleges and universities. It can help them find other students with whom they can relate, who they can share experiences with, and really just discuss the overall academic and social systems on colleges and universities. So it's important that extracurriculars are there for international students that really provide support and a way for them to escape the academic demands. And then the other piece is faculty. And the relationship between faculty and international students can be very different because international students may not have the same type of role with faculty just because of previous academic upbringings. So they may have different expectations, or faculty may have the same expectations of international students or vice versa. So it's important that faculty are able to develop relationships and are able to understand international students and some of the challenges that they are experiencing. And this concludes the presentation for international students, and as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.